Hello everyone, welcome to our virtual event in good taste for New York City by Design. Before we begin, I wanted to thank Elisa Black, Valerie Hoffman, and the entire New York City by Design team for organizing yet another wonderful week of programming. Before we dive into today's conversation, I would like to provide a bit of context for what we are about to embark upon. For the past several years, TEALEAVES has been on a journey to create our fourth documentary, which focuses on the concept of taste. We initially hypothesized that tastes impact our decisions, and those very decisions have an outsized effect on our health and the health of the planet. We spoke to medical doctors, foragers, and conservation scientists to learn about regenerative agriculture and preventative medicine. We heard from chefs, design educators, and anthropologists to get to the fact that taste is social, formed by both our physical experience as well as our cultural understanding. The In Good Taste documentary launches this Friday, May 21st, in celebration of UNESCO's World Day of Cultural Diversity. We hope that you will join us by registering for the launch event just above me. But today we are thrilled to discuss food as a vehicle for cultural education with the phenomenal organization Immigrant Food. Immigrant Food is a startup with a mission to celebrate, advocate, and educate on behalf of immigrants. It is a restaurant with a cause, bringing you world flavors with a mission. Through a fusion menu created by Chef Enrique Limardo, the Crosscasual restaurant celebrates the centuries of gastronomic contributions by immigrants from around the world, but they don't stop there. Immigrant Food is also an advocacy platform that partners with 5 local immigrant service NGOs to connect its customers with the immigrant community and educate them on the complexities of immigration. Through its monthly micro-digital publication, The Think Table, Immigrant Food slices and dices the immigrant issue into manageable bites to cut through the noise of misinformation, advocating and educating through food. They call it gastroadvocacy. We are beyond honored to have been given the opportunity to sit down with 2 members of the Immigrant Food team, Chef Enrique Limardo and Tea Ivanovic, to learn about their gastroadvocacy. Born in Caracas, Venezuela, Chef Enrique Limardo has garnered inspiration from working in many countries. His culinary inspirations are, of course, from the beaches of his native country's Margarita Island and the street foods of Caracas. But his cooking also reflects the coconuts of Barbados, the za'atar of Doha and Dubai, and the curries of Hong Kong and Bangkok, all places where Enrique has worked and thrived. Attracted to Washington, D.C. by the metro area's bubbling food scene and endless diversity, he co-founded Immigrant Food as an homage to America's immigrant diversity. Tea Ivanovic is the creative and strategic mind behind Immigrant Food's brand. Born in Belgium to parents from the former Yugoslavia and recruited to the United States by Virginia Tech's Division I varsity tennis team, Tea calls herself an immigrant squared. She still can't figure out if Serbian, Flemish, or English is her native language. She speaks all of them equally. Her professional career includes creating and implementing strategic communications for international policy and politics at a Washington, D.C. think tank, and global financial matters at a financial, public, and media relations firm. Tea was the first Washington correspondent for Oslo Bojenje, Bosnia and Herzegovina's oldest newspaper and leading news outlet in the Western Balkans. She graduated with a master's degree from Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. This conversation was recorded by my colleague, Kate Morsink, who is TEALEAVE's Sustainability Manager. Without further ado, I will let you get into that conversation, which we hope will be very nourishing.
Okay, perfect. Then let's dive right in. So I'd love to hear both of your stories if you would kindly share with us, as well as immigrant food stories, and how did the two of you, come to be here today?
Well, my story. I was born in Venezuela, and then I came to America in 2014, mid 2014. With a lot of dreams because I just left my country because the situation in Venezuela, economics and politics and everything. So I mean, I started knowing people, connecting with people, and came out different opportunities at that point. So I opened a restaurant in Baltimore. The name was Alma Cocina Latina. And through that restaurant, I just had the opportunity to meet Peter and other partners that I have nowadays. And I mean, after almost 7 years in this country and having met Peter and Thea, and they present me this opportunity about immigrant food. At that moment, almost 1.5 years ago.
2019.
Yeah, almost 1.5 years ago. Uh, for me, was the perfect opportunity to showcase what immigrants are and what we can be in this country. Um, I mean, and we create this amazing concept that is a Crosscasual that represent why I'm here in United States. You know, it's the opportunity for immigrants. It's the way that we can celebrate migration through food. And for me, food is the real thing to connect. Yeah? I mean, from my perspective, I know there are another things in the world that can connect, but for me, everything connects through food. And and now we are like expanding the concept, and we are doing so great. Besides everything happening at the same time with the pandemic and everything, but we are doing so well.
And so I'm Teja Ivanovic, and I was born in Belgium, and my family's from Serbia. So I like to call myself an immigrant squared, because all I've ever known is to be an immigrant. I moved around in Europe a lot. I lived in like 7 countries before moving to the U.S. I moved to the U.S. on a tennis scholarship, played in college, and stayed for graduate school, and ended up staying here, like many immigrants do. And then, as Enrique was talking about, you know, we started Immigrant Food in we officially opened in November 2019, which was a very auspicious time to open a restaurant, 3 months before the pandemic. But we started, you know, earlier that year with the concept and thinking about the brand and what we wanted it to be, because you know, immigrant food is really a different kind of restaurant, and that was really the idea, is to form a restaurant with a mission. And our mission is to celebrate, but also to advocate and educate on behalf of immigrants. So we celebrate, you know, through this delicious fusion food, the delicious fusion menu that Enrique and his team created. But we also wanted to help immigrants today. And so we partner with 5 local immigrant service NGOs that do unbelievable work in the trenches every single day. And we help them in 2 ways, really. One is actually in the place where we're sitting right now. We would donate the space to them to use for English classes or volunteer trainings or board meetings even, at no cost to them, because we're located right next to the White House, and that was also intentional to send the message when we opened in 2019. But it's also a great location for our NGO partners because it's downtown, and a lot of their clients, their immigrant clients, are, you know, either janitor workers or have multiple shifts in the downtown area, and for them it was convenient to come here and meet. And the second way we want to help is through what we call an engagement menu. So we have a food menu, obviously, but right next to it, we have an engagement menu where customers can engage directly. So every week we change it. We have 5 ways that you can engage and make a contribution, whether it's financial, a donation, or whether it's donating your time as a volunteer, or whether it's simply just watching, you know, movie screening on immigration. So really just 5 easy ways that you can make a difference. And then lastly is we educate. So we also have a micro digital publication that we publish every month, where we slice and dice, to use food metaphors, 1 issue in immigration a month. So whether it's sanctuary cities or whether it's farm workers, there's so many different issues in immigration. So we take 1. We speak with experts. For example, for the March issue, we celebrated immigrant women, and we spoke with Reshma Saujani, who's the founder of Girls Who Code. So we speak with really, really great folks who explain the issue in very simple ways, so that when you're scrolling on your social media, you can learn something through an infographic or through a short video on the issue at hand.
Wow, that's incredible. I think it's amazing how you pair not only that incredible experience of being able to eat and try the foods and embrace that aspect of it, but also with the actionable steps, because I feel like that's something that's often missing, so people know how they can move forward. Chef, you mentioned this earlier, and you were referring to it as well, Tia. What does causal mean within the ethos of immigrant food?
So, I mean, for us, Crosscasual really means integrating the cause, the social justice cause into the business model. So when we talked about immigrant food, we looked at, for example, my previous job is in financial PR, and I worked a lot on impact investing. And a lot of big companies do great work, but they contribute, through their profits. They take part of the profits and donate it, right? Traditional CSR, corporate social responsibility. But we also think that small and medium-sized businesses need to take a stand. I think especially in this time of a lot of intolerance, a lot of misinformation, we chose the issue of immigration, and we can talk more about that. But we believe that businesses need to take a stand on these issues.
Absolutely. And what sparked food as being that vehicle for your impactful work?
Why do we choose food? I mean, I think it's what you talked about in the beginning, right? It's connecting people. We also think, food, Enrique can talk at length about that, right? Like how, immigrants brought food, right, from their countries. I mean, think of beer from Czechoslovakia or, bagels from Polish immigrants, right? I mean, there's just so many things that immigrants brought in terms of the food that we eat today and the food that we love and know. And so, think of, I love the story you always tell about like how Italian immigrants, right? Like Italians went to Asia, and then Marco Polo brought noodles back to Italy, and now, that's spaghetti.
Yeah, at a certain point, everything is mixed in cultures, but suddenly every culture take their own way how to adapt to that ingredient. For example, tomatoes is not from Italy, but tomatoes are from America. But suddenly they create this amazing pasta sauce, and now everybody knows the pasta sauce is Italian. But if at certain point, if the tomato didn't travel to Italy, what happened today? I don't know. We don't know that.
Right.
But everything is connected at certain point, for sure. And that's why when I create the menu and everything behind this concept, I start all the gray hair I have right now is because of it, because it was like combining 20, 30 different restaurants in just one place and try to celebrate all the migrations around the United States just in one menu. And I just started thinking how we can connect, how we can do such a thing, because it's not just fusion, but how we can represent that kind of cultures that surround us. For example, in Washington, like Ethiopians and Salvadorians, that are the largest population in Washington, D.C. So I started putting in a big piece of paper.
It's actually right here.
like a very big piece of paper, all the cultures that we want to represent in a certain way, and then start, looking for ingredients they use. I don't know, things that I can pull to connect, and then I start to highlighting things that they use in every single different culture. Then I went back to books, looked recipes and everything, and I found how to connect and how to create a really nice fusion. And that's why we create that mix Ethiopian and Salvadorian. That is very unique. I never thought that before, and I investigated, but I never, found something until now, because we did it. And I did a lot of failures on those recipes. It was very, very it doesn't match. But with that, we call it the food spider web. I found a way how to connect it, and we create a menu always based on that.
Wow, that's amazing. It's almost a work of art, that web. I think visually it really does reflect that. I mean, immigrants from a plethora of cultures have shared their food culture with America through cuisine, flavors, and I think it's really seeded the foundation of restaurants and food business within the States. From your perspectives, how has this melting pot of cultural expression, so to speak, really shaped the culinary scene of the United States? I mean, you've mentioned a few examples of ways that food has moved around and influence. How do you think it's influenced in the U.S.?
Completely, completely, and it's shaping now and for the future, because before we didn't know how Ethiopians prepare their rice bread, we didn't know how Mexicans prepare the barbacoa, and nowadays you can find those mixing in the new American cuisine in different restaurants. I mean, you don't have to go to a really traditional place to find those, but you start, finding places that they are trying to represent that in a certain way, because they will have immigrants for those regions working in those restaurants, and always they put something, on it, because it's in their souls, and they want to represent something for the country or for their pride. And I think we will see more of this, because now immigrants, they are more embraced to themselves. I think from my point of view that before, probably like 20, 30 years ago, immigrants were afraid to express, but now they feel like I'm doing something better for the country. I'm giving something, and that's part of our mission to support that, to embrace that idea.
Right. And I think the food scene has really exploded in the U.S. right in the last few years, and I mean you're part of that. And I think with American exactitude, right? They take a lot of these very fascinating concepts. I mean the recipes that you mentioned, and sort of make it their own and make it better and make it different, right? I mean, and also I think of the spirit orujo from Bolivia. Right, you can't find that in France or Belgium, where I'm from, or anywhere in Europe, because I think European countries and Europeans like to stick to their traditions. But I think Americans are much more open to experiment, and I think that really adds a lot of value to the food scene.
Absolutely. How do you at Immigrant Food design the food experiences as those opportunities to educate? So I know you've talked about those action items as well, but how do you find that people, respond or approach the experience who are maybe unfamiliar to these new foods or cultures, or even perhaps reticent? What's their response like, and what's that conversation like at the restaurant?
It's a great question. I mean, I think here at Immigrant Food, I mean, we're all about people, right? So we're all about, we're all immigrants here, staff working in the restaurant. But also when people come, I mean, we have evolved to become basically a full service restaurant. We started as a fast casual restaurant where you come to the cashier, you pay, and you get your buzzer and you leave, right? But with the pandemic, with everything changing, there was a demand. We felt the demand from people to become more going out to them. Right in the beginning, people didn't want to touch a buzzer for obvious reasons. But I think that model really works for us very well, because we go out, our servers are trained, they know all of this. They learn about the different cuisines and how they match together and what that represents. So Enrique mentioned a bowl that we started with when we opened, which is called the Columbia Road Bowl. And why Columbia Road? It's because Columbia Road is a street in the neighborhood Adams Morgan here in Washington, D.C. that is historically has been the home to a lot of immigrants. And the two largest immigrant populations in Washington are Ethiopians and Salvadorans. So Enrique came up with this amazing dish that combined Ethiopian cuisine with Salvadoran cuisine, which is, I mean, just mind-blowing, right? And so for Immigrant Food, the idea is to expand. We want to expand to different cities, hopefully one day. And so we want to replicate that model in different cities. So if we move to another city, we want to really celebrate the immigrant populations in that city.
Yeah, I want to add that also we are educating the customers at certain points since the beginning, because people came into immigrant food and they don't realize all the things that's happened in this place. And from the point that we do the advocate and education, but also from the food, people came in and they, wow, Mumbai Mariachi. They just, that kind of names like
Right.
pop up. Mumbai Mariachi. What is that? Oh, this is a fusion where we try to represent Indian culture and Mexican culture just in one. And people start asking so many different questions every day. So and we have to be very well prepared how to educate our customers. We need to know about the ingredients. We need to know about the influence. We need to know, so many different things that people in Washington ask. And well, Thea does a really amazing job because she's always on top of it. And that's one of the things that I always see in immigrant food very interesting, that play to educate all the time. Because when you go out to eat, probably you have in mind, okay, pizza, burger, pasta, I don't know, steak. But if you go to immigrant food, it's like a whole different universe, because you have bowls, you have drinks, you have coffees from all around, you have sandwiches, you have, and every sandwich has their own identity with their own fusion. And it's
a place where you're forced to think a little bit.
Yeah.
Tia, you mentioned the pandemic, and I think everyone's pretty aware that hospitality restaurants were really challenged during that time. I think especially independently owned and run. I think we've really seen in times of these social distress, though, as well, opportunities where food, it connects people with memory, tradition, it provides nourishment, but also just beyond the basics of calories. How do you see food as being a supportive role through the pandemic to communities?
It's such a great question because there's so many components to it that I won't be able to touch all in this answer. But when the pandemic hit, we had just been open for 3 months, and so it was really hard for us because we're a downtown restaurant. So we're really we're in a place where there's no homes, right? There's no apartment buildings. There's nothing residential. It's all offices. So once no one started coming to the office, it was a ghost town, right? Secondly, also we're also very far from residential areas. So delivery apps, for example, have a 2-mile radius, and they can't get to those residential areas. I think also for us, we're a casual place, and I think people started ordering for dinner from a fancy restaurant, but not really from a more casual location. So I think, those three, being so new, being so far downtown, and then just being casual was a triple hurdle for us, I think, to succeed. But I think with the resiliency of our team, I think we've gotten so close together. And I think the story is really about people, right? When we closed, our staff, obviously we had to let go staff, but they all said, we want to keep working. We'll work on commission. Cashiers became delivery drivers. And I think the story of food, I think, is a lot also the story of people and how people are resilient and came through this pandemic altogether.
In addition to the challenges that I think we've all faced with the pandemic, as a society, we're also facing huge challenges in regards to the environment, biodiversity loss. But we are seeing that, some of the answers, especially to embracing diversity and better ways of eating and preparing and growing our food can be really addressed through the food practices and through restaurants as well. How do you both see the incorporation of new food philosophies as playing a role in helping support our food system to be more resilient, more embracing of diversity, both for people and the planet?
Pandemic was a very big lesson in life, and for the business, it's bigger than everything else right now, because we learn so many different things. We adapt faster than before. we optimize every single step of the restaurant than before. Before we were thinking, okay, let's go, let's roll, whatever. Now you have to think about it every minute, how to improve, how to be better, and how we have to achieve all of those goals, like second by second. After was like, okay, let's plan for the next, I don't know, 6 months. Now you have to plan tomorrow, and tomorrow you have to be more creative and create something different for the next 3 days, and then came up with a new idea, and then create something new. Have to be wow factor. Have to be. It's like it's very stressful, but I think it's the way that humanity needs right now to evolve, and the industry have to evolve, and I think it's a good sign because the people are surviving and the restaurant like us survive. After this, we are gonna do something better for the rest.
So, I mean, I think it's a fascinating conversation to talk about sustainability in the restaurant industry. And Enrique, I'd love your thoughts too on sustainable sourcing of recipes and ingredients and how important that is. I mean, I think the pandemic in that sense has, I would say from our perspective, put us a little bit, has put us back a little bit for that, because our priority has been surviving. It's been, survival mode for the last, 12 months. And, we as Immigrant Food are very aware of all the, all the inequalities that are happening with, for example, with farm workers. We've done, I mentioned the Think Table earlier, our monthly magazine. We've done a whole issue on immigrant farm workers and how many of them are undocumented, yet they don't have protection. Yet it's this vicious circle of, the companies that employ them need them very much. But are not really willing to give them status in many cases, and so that is just a terrible vicious cycle. I think from the human perspective, and then from the sustainability perspective, I think it's a fascinating conversation. We've talked about it offline too, of like, how do you see the future in terms of finding resources that are sustainable?
Yeah, we are trying to be as sustainable as possible, as much as possible. Sustainable is a really complex word to understand, because the real sustainability meaning probably is just in a tiny town that they support themselves and they live just there. But nowadays it's a massive production of everything, and we have to feed thousands and thousands of people, and that's a very fine line how to define sustainability there. So we go to the purveyors and said them like, we cannot buy things that is not from a real farm, try to not use cans or less cans as possible, and we try to do everything from the scratch as much as possible. But that is a lot of effort, a lot of labor intense. But I mean, that's our job and that's our cause also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of conversations as well about how really the fact that we have this monoculture when it comes to taste, and that's also to our detriment as well in regards to not only being more inclusive and more equitable, but also when it comes to the planet, if we're all eating one crop or the same 5 foods, then we're going to run out of them pretty quickly, and we're going to have a huge lack of biodiversity. But I think what's so amazing about what you're doing, even when you showed how you're bringing in all these different types of cuisines and spices and ingredients, is bringing that diversity to the plate and showing people, wow, there's so many more foods that I can enjoy that I maybe didn't even know about. When you were going through that process, were there any particular, types of cuisine or food practices that really stood out to you? Either, perhaps it was using foraged ingredients, or it was being more mindful and using all parts of the plant and then having less waste, or using, as you mentioned, even less resource intensive ingredients. What stood out to you?
I mean, you just say it, because in all of my restaurants or the concept that I participate, waste is something that I have my eye on it. all the time. So, for example, when we prepare vegetable, fruits, or all of that that have yield and waste, we gather everything. When it's fruits and vegetables, we gather everything and we make ashes from it. So from the skin of the onions, the skin of mangoes, peel tangerines, whatever, everything goes to a bucket. We it's kind of like a burn in the oven until they like completely dry and roast. Then we blend it and we preserve that. And then with that, we prepare oils, vinaigrettes, goes in cakes, in the salt, in the sugar. So try to waste at less as possible. It's the same with beef, with chicken, with fish. For example, fish, in one of my restaurants, we hang it for 3 or 4 days after we clean it. I mean, we separate the fillets and everything, and the bones and the heads and the intestine and everything. We hang it for 3 or 4 days until they dry completely, and then we use that to make a stocks or to make oils, to give more deep sense of taste to a stock or a sauce. I mean, that's part of the contribution we can do. More than that, it's a really difficult process. We cannot be in charge of all the waste around, but from us, we try to do at least 1% waste. I would say 99% of the thing that we use is completely in-house, and we try to produce everything there.
I think it's also creating a system, right, that supports that, right, and that incentivizes other restaurants. I mean, Enrique explained how we do it here, but unfortunately, there's many restaurants that don't do that, and that don't find that as important because of what I mentioned. The pandemic set us back so much, and the entire restaurant industry. So a lot of restaurants just don't feel like they have the bandwidth to focus on sustainability because they're trying to survive. So I think it's creating an ecosystem where we incentivize minimal waste, where we incentivize sustainability. I think it's crucial.
Yeah, but the business model have to adapt, because they don't realize when you do that, it's a little more labor intense, but you make more money from it,
Right.
because it's less waste. And you have to have a creative mind to see how you can put all of that in recipes. But it's a good way to do it. I mean, we try to be in a balance point.
There's so many cultures that, as you were mentioning, waste, in particular when it comes to the food process, is not even really a factor, because it's about using different parts of the animal or the plant or whatnot to create, as you said, more depth of flavor. So it's seen as an asset. I think sometimes we can lose sight of that. In North America, we become more used to waste as just being a necessary byproduct, but perhaps sometimes we think of it as unpreventable when it is. I'm curious, from the voice of immigrants, how do you think we can change these norms within the food industry to bolster its overall resilience by acknowledging the value of these contributions, by acknowledging the value of these practices that come from immigrant cultures?
Yeah, I mean, I think education is hugely important, right? And so, one of our three pillars, right, is celebrate, advocate, and educate. And I think there's so much misinformation out there that obviously is just amplified through social media. And I think it's just important to really take the time to, how Twitter recently introduced where you have to read the article, right, before you share it, or you're encouraged to read it before you share it. That's what we try to do as well, right? We try to take one topic, go a little bit in depth, but really just explain things that you should know about. And, on your own time, you can go more in depth and read more about it. But I think it's important that we don't have the misconceptions that then, become conspiracy theories that then, potentially elect someone into power. Oh, wait, that happened, who can really do damage to a country or to the world.
When we look at the dining experience as a whole, I know you mentioned that you started fast casual. You've also evolved your experience. I think when we've seen it in the past and through history. There's often been this association that, luxury or what's covetable is typically very exclusionary, extremely expensive, often very resource intensive, which means it's then not good for the environment whatsoever. How do you think we can start to change that narrative and create a new food system and food experience that's desirable, but also much more inclusionary and just beneficial for everyone?
Yeah, I think outside is a lot of businesses or a lot of people like us doing the same in very different places for sure around the world, but we need more exposure because big companies and they have all the power to express and to be in the social media, to be on the streets, marketings, wherever. But we need more exposure. And how to do that? Well, we have to keep working and do the things that we do, and they are communicate and communicate and communicate, over communicate every day. So
I think it's forming, communities first. You start local and then you begin growing it, right? I mean, I think it's what we're trying to do, as we talked about too, is very different, right? I know, people, there's amazing people that do amazing things, but I think specifically in the restaurant industry, having a small, startup, embracing a social justice cause, it's not a model we're following, right? We don't really know what we're doing. We're sort of just, inventing it as we go. And I think, I think it's important to educate people on the ground, to start creating communities. Now we have regulars who come by who maybe first came in for a sandwich, but then saw, next time they came in, they saw the engagement menu. And then next time they came in, they saw the think table. And I think it's really creating a community of people who are like-minded, who are interested in these things, and who want to contribute and who want to be part of this.
If you could share one or two things with everyone and they all knew it tomorrow to help us, start forward in this transition to change the food industry.
I think it's keeping an open mind, I would say. I mean, it's just,
and love.
And love, definitely.
I would say
Definitely.
love is a powerful tool.
Right.
We need to love everything with us, and we need to love our planet. We need to love our customer. We need to love our neighborhood. We have to love, almost everything, and we have to express through that way.
Right. And I think you're afraid of what you don't know, right? I mean, I think you're afraid, and you sort of, I mean, it's much more going into theory, which I'm happy to do, but you always alienate the other if you don't know who the other is. And so I think that it's through educating each other. I mean, education is such a fancy word almost. It sounds too far away, but I think it's just important to really take the time to get to know each other, to get to know what you're doing and what you're trying to do. And it's all a lot easier once you get the ball rolling. I think, for us, when the pandemic hit, I mean, we basically, like many restaurants, I mean, I think it's 1 in 4 restaurants that ended up closing. We were close to closing down forever. But I think it's, then we took it just day by day of, okay, how can we relearn the things that we thought we knew, and how can we learn new things? And, slowly, day by day, we just took it day by day, and we're getting out of it now. So I think it's just keeping an open mind and learning from each other.
Chef, for anyone who is maybe excited to be a little bit more open-minded or experimental in the kitchen, do you have any tips for starting to broaden your palate or the ingredients that you use?
I mean, eat a lot. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because in the culinary career, you will make a lot of them, but you will learn from it, and it is not success without any failure. And for me, I am like a kid in a kitchen. So kids doesn't have that, like barriers, limits. And when you grow up, you start, putting those. But if you feel like completely free, like you don't know if that is gonna combine well. Obviously, if you have 20 years on experience or 25 years as experience like me, you already have something going on in your mind, and you create, you connect, and you will know that probably that will be a good combination. But you have to have in mind the eyes of a kid. It's like goes wherever randomly, okay, grab, put, but you have technique because you learn, but you have to have that attitude in the kitchen. That's a way to be creative, and the way to be like already. You have to be fun because it's a really intense industry.
I'm already feeling excited to go into the kitchen and maybe try something new.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, probably I mean, most of the recipes that I have, and some of them they are very, very, very popular because people love it. Some of them was mistakes. Just put some fruit in a pot, and suddenly I start doing another thing. I forgot about it. I come like 10 minutes. Oh, Jesus, it's completely burnt. And it's not burnt. Let me taste it. Wow, that's interesting. It's a little burnt, but, and then, okay, if I add some sugar to balance the taste of bitterness because the burnt thing, and then I create something really great. And what's that mistake?
You see, but I try to apply that philosophy in the kitchen, but it doesn't work as well.
There's probably that natural talent that
that's probably part of it. But no, I like that. I think it's just going for it and just trying new and different things.
Any last things that either of you would like to share or want to talk about that we haven't discussed yet?
You asked such amazing questions,
yes.
And that really made us think a lot about sort of who we are and what we're trying to do. I think it's, I just want to end with just a positive note of you asked us as well, but at Immigrant Food, we really try to do something a little bit different of trying to incorporate a social justice mission into a restaurant that was, is now a single restaurant. Next week, we're opening a new location. In a few months, we're opening a third location, and we hope to continue to grow. And so I think it's just important to keep an open mind and to learn from each other as we've done, I think, in this last year a lot.
Completely agree with you.
Well, thank you both so much for your time. I think this has been a really enlightening and eye-opening conversation. I myself am so excited to finally be able to come to Washington and try your amazing food. And thank you once again for your time on behalf of TEALEAVES. It's absolutely such a pleasure to be speaking with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you to TEALEAVES for the opportunity. We're so grateful to be connected with you all.
Our pleasure.
I'm an immigrant, and I think when you first move away from what is your home, you immediately just want to fit in, and you quickly embrace whatever you see as the norm. And I've realized over time that really what makes me stand out and the things that bring me joy are the things that make me different. And so I have made more peace with how I'm different in any environment, and how maybe I do make it a little bit more exciting and challenge the norm. I think the only person who can own your taste is you. We can take in as much guidance from the world around us, people who have access or have sophisticated palates, but ultimately it's what brings you joy. And I really do believe that your taste is yours. And the more we expose ourselves to things we've never seen or experienced before, I think we kind of open ourselves up to change, to challenging our tastes, and to, in general, just living a better life.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. We hope that you found it enriching and interesting in the same way that we did when we had the opportunity to speak with Chef Enrique and Taya. We hope that you will take time to explore the rest of the resources on this page to do with the In Good Taste documentary project, but specifically the resources to do with immigrant food. so that you can find out how you can support their incredible cause. If you would like to join us for the documentary premiere, we will be hosting an event launching this documentary at the World Biodiversity Forum Friday, May 21st. The registration button is just above me, and we hope to see you there. Thank you very much. Have a safe rest of your week and take care.